Hey, it's me, April Spectrum, and I guess 50th time is the charm? I'm trying to record video because I want to get back in the habit of doing weekly videos, and this is my last day off from work this week. But I keep getting nervous about it, and self-critical, and freaking out and being like, oh no, I paused at a second, and it was too long of a pause, or else I didn't have enough of a pause, and this is a problem. So yeah. I wanted to dig into some stuff I noticed while watching Iron Fist, which if you haven't watched Iron Fist, I can't spoiler it too much for you because I've only watched one episode. But if you haven't watched any of it, I'm going to spoiler the heck out of that one episode because I have literally no idea what things are considered to be plot points or not plot points with the movie. So it's either all or nothing, which is why I didn't do a lot of tweeting about Get Out, except to tell people that they need to see it because it's a great movie. And also, if you haven't seen Get Out, you need to see it. It's a great movie. I can't tell you anything about it because I'll tell you all about it, and that would be a very long video. Anyways, so Iron Fist. If you haven't watched it at all, skip this video. Basically, what I got out of the first episode. This dude shows up and he's got no shoes. And it's a big deal because feet are gross, right? We're all supposed to think that anyways. I think it's a big deal because gross, walking around outside with no shoes in New York, like yuck, that's gonna be like so many germs, like you'll get tetanus or something. But so he's walking around with no shoes and he looks like a hobo. And then he like has no idea why everyone thinks he's a hobo. Like people think he's a hobo and he's like, what? Why do you think that? And he's like horrified and like super offended and he's a total ass about it. So he goes to the company where, like, his dad apparently owned it, and he's like, hey guys, it's me. And they're like, who the fuck are you? And he's like, I'm the guy who owns the place. And they're like, yeah, no, you're not. Like, look, I've seen Batman Begins as well, and this is not how this goes. Because apparently he's supposed to be dead, but we don't figure this out yet. But we totally figure it out. So then he's like, well, I'll just sneak in and try to force my way to see the boss. Yeah, because the boss shows up. I mean, I haven't worked in a high-rise fancy building that does mystery stuff in New York, but I've worked a few jobs, and the owner of the company is never there. And even in like small mom and pop shops, the owner is almost never there. And if he is there, he isn't in his office working. He's there just bullshitting with people like, oh hey, I have to put in at least an hour a year at the office in order to claim that I worked in some sort of tax break, so here I am and I've got a beer in my hand. So, okay, he just assumes that he can walk in and see the guy with no appointment. And then he decides he's gonna sneak in. And somehow he does. And, so while he's sneaking in, he sneaks in, and he goes in this elevator, right? But he can't go anywhere in the elevator because he doesn't have a pass. So, this girl shows up, and she's on her phone, and she has a pass, and she doesn't notice him because she's on her phone. Really? You walk into an elevator with what looks like a hobo in it, when you're like a fancy person in a fancy, ginormous building in New York doing fancy shit, and you don't notice a hobo standing in the elevator. Bullshit. Okay, first of all, you'd be able to smell him. Because I don't care how clean he thinks he is. He's been walking around barefoot? Gross. He can't be that clean. He must smell. Also, like, even if he wasn't dirty, you'd be able to smell that there was a man there. Like, sorry, I'm a girl. I notice this stuff. If I walk in an elevator and there's a man in there, I can smell it. I can smell it if there was a man in there and he's not in there anymore. And I'm not going to be on my phone completely oblivious to the fact that there's a dude in there. I might pretend to be oblivious to keep him from talking to me, but if he looks like a scary guy, I'm not going to go in there and be on my phone. No way. I'm going to look at him and I'm going to go, you know what? Fuck. I'm going to take the stairs. There's my cardio. I'm not going in there because I watch the news. That's how people get themselves killed. But she goes in there, and she also doesn't notice because her phone conveniently beeps to alert her to new text at the exact moment that he rescans her little ID so that he can go up to another floor, because in the 12, 15, or however many years he's been missing, The floor that the boss's office is on hasn't changed. I think CinemaSins calls that because plot. But yeah, so she conveniently doesn't notice, and she goes on her way, and nobody sees him because plot. Okay, so he goes to the office, and the boss isn't there. What a big surprise! But he miraculously recognizes his childhood friends, who are also the boss's sons, who also don't recognize him, who also hate him and want him dead. And instead of being like, hey guys, this is my life story and why I'm here all of a sudden, because I know you guys probably assumed I was dead when I didn't show up, for the last 15 years. He just was like, I'm Danny Rand. I need to talk to you. So talk. We need to talk. We should get tea at this place and talk. Oh, that place is closed. Oh, I've been gone a long time. Come on, dude. Give him something that you couldn't just Google. Okay. So that doesn't work, and security throws him out. Oh, by the way, he also beat up security at one point. But he doesn't beat up security again. Because plot. So he goes to this homeless park and starts listening to his music. And he's listening to hip-hop to show you that he cares about people. Because that's why people listen to hip-hop in movies, is to show that they care about the plight of colored people when they're white. Because white people don't listen to hip-hop. White people listen to country, which sounds like a raccoon swallowed a harmonica and is getting run over by cars repeatedly, and so the air that's being squished out of its bloated corpse is going through the harmonica. That's what country sounds like. But white people listen to that instead of hip-hop. So, okay, he's listening to hip-hop. Now, if he was actually raised by Buddhist Tibetans in some other world, like we're kind of guessing from his flashbacks, he should be listening to some sort of Oriental music, but is listening to hip-hop. And they must be kind of low budget because they only have one hip-hop song. So he's listening, and this hobo comes up to him, right? And the hobo's like, are you new around here? And I'm like, oh shit, man, you're gonna get your ass handed to you. This guy's gonna freaking stab you or something. Instead, turns out the hobo guy's like, oh man, I don't want you to starve. I don't want you to go cold. I saw you had no shoes, so I'll tell you where to get some. Like, here, I want to take care of you. And he's like, this hobo thinks I'm a hobo. And he gets pissed, and he's an ass about it. And, he doesn't, beat the guy up or anything, but he's a total dick, and he's all snooty. And, at one point he says to the guy, he's like, I bet people think we're about the same. And the guy's looking at him like, wow, kid, you are a fucking prick. And I'm like, damn, if I was that hobo, I would have shivved him for that. Okay, so somehow he learned from the Tibetans to be a dick instead of being cool, which is weird, because, when I was a kid, the Dalai Lama came to our school. The Dalai Lama is not a dick. And, I've never heard of any Tibetan person being a dick. Especially not someone who's, dedicated their whole life to learning how to, be one with nature and shit. But okay, so he's a dick. So then he decides, I know, I'll go to my childhood home. Because clearly nothing's changed there, right? And while they changed the locks and did all these renovations, they left his old key on top of the door-y thing so that he could find his old key, but oh, it doesn't work, I'm gonna have to break in. Dude, it ain't your house no more. But, because plot, it's the house of, I'm already predicting she's going to be his love interest, Joy, who was his childhood friend, but now she wants to kill him, maybe, kind of, I think. And also, she's probably evil, but it's hard to tell. Because she also sometimes is like, aw, he looks like our old friend Danny. But we should probably kill him just in case. Okay, so he goes in there, and he's like, wow, everything's different inside. I totally didn't see that coming. Hi, Bagel. And then he's looking, and he's like, oh, look, it's pictures of her. It must be her house. I'm not gonna give you a tour of my house, but I will assure you on no uncertain terms, I own 0 pictures of myself. I might have some on my phone that I took, to post, but I don't have any framed photos of myself. That's, what? I mean, maybe if I took, a family photo, I would have that, if I was, on speaking terms with my family. But not just pictures of me by myself to tell you whose home it is. That's not a thing. But, so then he's like, oh no, her dog. And this is the thing that bugs me about things that have dogs in them. Because things that have dogs in them are always written by people who've never interacted with a dog. Speaking of which, Bagel puppy, come here. I'm going to show you my boyfriend's dog. Come here, Bagel. This is Bagel. He's a Frenchie. And I tested out my theory on him, and he reacted how I thought he would. Because my theory was that if I approach... Oh, you want up? My theory was that if I approached Bagel the way Danny Rand approached the dog in Joy's house / his old house, Bagel would flip out and maul me. And, well, he doesn't really maul because he has, like, no teeth, because his teeth are little baby teeth, because he's a bulldog. But he definitely was like, oh, we're playing a battle game. So he does this, like, thing where he's like, I'm gonna walk all weird, and then I'm gonna, do hands. Dude, everybody knows the correct way to approach a dog that's mad at you is to go, oh, puppy, and act really excited, and the dog goes, I was wrong, it's clearly a friend who wants to pet me. And then the dog comes up to be petted, and you pet it, and you're good. Like, I've done that like a million times with dogs. I used to be terrified of dogs, and I would pretend to love them, and they would be like, oh, a human who loves me, and they'd, like, wag their tail so hard their whole body's shaked, and then they'd let me pet their tummy, and then they'd be fine. And people would be like, what the hell, that is the most vicious dog, how did you do that? It's a dog. All dog is puppy. So, he does that, and his magic voodoo totally Crocodile Dundee's the dog, and he locks it in the study, and then, like, waits for her outside until she, like, comes out in the morning, somehow. And then he's like, I need to talk to you. And then he talks to her about how much he needs to talk to her until a car comes, and then he does a flip over car and, like, goes away and doesn't talk to her. And then, like, he goes to the Kung Fu lady, and she tried to give him money because she thought he was a hobo, and he was pissed. He was like, I'm not a hobo, I don't need your charity. And she was like, okay, dude, whatever. I don't want that money back. It probably smells like you now. You know? And this is my water. And so, like, he's like, but I do need a job. And so, like, but he shows up at her place, like, when she's, like, training people. And he's like, do you teach Kung Fu? And she's like, no. Bagel, cut it out, Pop. She's like, no, I don't teach Kung Fu. And he's like, well, I should teach Kung Fu here, and you should hire me to do it. And she's like, no. And then he starts being, like, a super creeper, right? Like, he walks up all close in her personal space and stuff, and he's, like, insistent, and she's like, dude, you need to leave. And he's like, and, like, he doesn't leave, and he doesn't, like, I don't even know if he says anything to her, like, he's just weird. And she's like, you should buy a coffee down the street, or buy some flip-flops down the street. As in, get out of my place. And she, like, literally says that to him like that. And he's like, not leaving. And she's, like, freaking out, right? And she freaking has this, like, bamboo sword thing for, like, training the kendo kids. And she, like, puts it up to his neck. And she's like, dude, you do not want to feel what it's like to get hit in the face with one of these. And he's like, I already know what it's like. Dude, she doesn't actually care if you know what it's like to get hit in the face. She's telling you, get the fuck out before I fucking beat the shit out of you, you scary-ass motherfucker. And instead, he keeps being creepy, right? And then, I don't even know, like, what happens to make him leave, but then this dude tries to kill him, and I'm like, thug ex machina. But then it turns out that it's not a thug. It's the security guard pretending to be a thug. Because, what's her name, his childhood friend and her brother want him dead, right? And, so he fights that guy, and suddenly he's in Chinatown, and they're doing, like, Chinese New Year's, because apparently it's always Chinese New Year's in Chinatown. That's logical, right? Like, what else do Chinese people do besides karate, make Chinese food, and celebrate Chinese New Year? I guess wear schoolgirl outfits. No, wait, that's Japanese. Anyways, totally not racist, guys, right? Like, that's totally not racist to make it be Chinese New Year. Anyways, Chinese New Year doesn't actually help him lose the guys, but it does help him beat him up while looking cool wearing a mask he stole. So there's points for that. Bagel, stop knocking my camera. Just be normal. So then, like, he leaves the one guy in like the basement place, and I was like, dude, that guy's gonna get fucking raped, but he doesn't. So apparently, at least this isn't like that kind of a story. Then he goes and he like gets in the car of the guy who tried to kill him, and he drives around real fast and has a flashback while yelling at the guy that he was an asshole as they were kids. And the guy was like, I was an asshole, and I was like, oh, gaslighting? And it's like, no, not gaslighting. He's just showing that he doesn't want to believe that is. Oh, and did you know that their dead dad was not dead? I'm not really sure how that plot twist got revealed in the thing, because honestly at this point I was having more fun trying out weird ways of walking up to my dog, my boyfriend's dog, and seeing like what would get the most reaction out of him, and like pretending like that's what happened in the movie instead. It was way more fun. But so apparently their dad isn't dead. He lives in a secret penthouse apartment under the basement of their building that for some reason had floor-to-ceiling windows that were letting daylight in even though it was night. So I hope at some point they establish that those are those like fancy windows with the like UV lights behind them that like simulate daylight, like for plants and shit, because that would be cool. They used to sell those for like in people's cubicles in Seattle. Anyways, that would be cool if they established that, but they probably won't. So he was like, let me handle it. And then he came back to the office to talk to the girl, and she roofied him. Only it didn't work like a real roofie. It worked like a TV roofie, where like all of a sudden they're like, oh no, I've been roofied! And then they like pass out, and the camera goes blurry, and then the person walks up and stares at them, so there's no doubt who did it. That's not how a real roofie works. A real roofie, you're just like, wow, everything is gonna be okay. But then, like, it's not okay. Like, stuff is totally bad. Like, your hands don't work and you can't move right. But you're like, no, this is probably fine. It's cool. This is good. So, I really wish they'd have shown it, like, realistically. But, so she roofied him, and he's like, why would you do that? And she's like, because you're a fucking psycho who's been stalking me, and you showed up at my work, and I'm scared of you. Like, what did you think was gonna happen? But then, because they're assholes, they put him in a mental hospital. And I know it's a mental hospital because they gave him a shot of something. And they only show you getting shots in mental hospitals on TV. Even though in mental hospitals, in real life, they can't just give you shots willy-nilly. You have to have, like, prescriptions and shit. It's only in actual hospitals that they can give you shots based on their doctor's best judgment. But, so they put him in a mental hospital, so I think they're going to try and convince him he's crazy, but I think he might have superpowers, because I'm not sure how much of what happens in his head is flashbacks, and how much of it is going to some magical place in his mind, and I think he might have mind-swapped with a hawk at one point. It's all very confusing. They didn't do a good job of explaining what powers he has, but I know he's going to be better at Kung Fu than the Asian, because white guys are always better than Asians at Kung Fu if there's a movie where two people do Kung Fu, and one of them's white and one of them's Asian. So, that's what happened. And the problems I had, besides, like, the obvious racism, was he was really fucking creepy, and he should be the bad guy of the movie based on the actions he's taken so far. But we're supposed to think he's the good guy. And that's a problem, because he's not the good guy. Although, sending someone to murder you is kind of bad. When someone's showing up and doing weird shit and breaking into your house, they're the bad guy. And, yeah, they should have called the cops and shit, but they didn't because plot. He's the bad guy. Anyways, puppy tax. Bagel, give me a kiss.